The scope of the burden of disease and death that cigarette smoking imposes on the public's health is extensive. The magnitude of the public health threat posed by cigarette smoking stems from two factors. The first is the prevalence of cigarette smoking is so high, and the second is that smoking causes so many critical health effects. A new policy change could reduce the prevalence of cigarette smoking and will result in a commensurate reduction in the population burden of disease and death caused by cigarette smoking. The associations between cigarette smoking and the adverse health effects caused by smoking are dose dependent. That is why a public health benefit would be realized if a policy change led to the reduced exposure to cigarette smoke via the means other than reducing the prevalence of smoking. For example, additional reduction in the population burden of smoking-caused disease and death will be generated if the policy also results in delayed initiation of cigarette smoking. The population health benefit from delayed initiation, although it will be large, will be less than the benefit from a commensurate reduction in smoking prevalence because delayed initiation is associated with reduced exposure to cigarette smoking rather than with the complete prevention of the exposure. A decrease in the prevalence of cigarette smoking will have additional downstream benefits by reducing the potential for non-smokers to be exposed to secondhand tobacco smoke. Cigarette smoking causes chronic diseases that appear at older ages, such as lung cancer, as well as adverse health effects that occur in the short run. The immediate and short-term adverse health effects of cigarette smoking are less likely to be directly fatal than the long-term health effects. Nevertheless, they are important public health indicators because they lead to suboptimal health status throughout the life course in smokers, and because many of the short-term physiologic effects contribute to the makeup of smoking-caused diseases that usually do not come clinically apparent until later on in adulthood. Some of the short-term adverse health effects caused by cigarette smoking can be observed in smokers immediately or soon after they begin smoking. The health effects of cigarette smoking thus begin at or near the age of initiation of cigarette smoking, which is usually early on in adolescence. To highlight the immediate effects of the adverse impact of smoking on health, exposure to tobacco smoke can affect the various stages of life, which include childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood, as well as middle and late adulthood, when most of the chronic disease burden imposed by smoking occurs. A particularly vulnerable time during the life course is when a woman is going through pregnancy. This can be fatal for both the mother and the fetus. And the months following the birth for the infant are most important. For this reason, we need strict laws on smoke exposure. National and international studies have found substantial declines in cotinine, a marker of secondhand smoke, among both hospitality workers and general public, following the implementation of smoke-free laws. Cotinine is a byproduct that the body creates when it breaks down nicotine, a major ingredient of tobacco smoke. Cotinine can be measured by testing saliva, urine, or blood. It has been shown in other states, such as New York, that salivary cotinine levels among non-smoking adults decreased by 47.4% within 1 year after the law took effect. Another study found that salivary nicotinol levels among non-smoking adult workers in the state decreased by 85% within 1 year after the law took effect. A statewide comprehensive smoke-free law prohibiting smoking in all indoor areas of workplaces, restaurants, and bars was implemented in Minnesota as well. A study showed that urine nicotinol levels among non-smoking bar and restaurant employees decreased by 80% within 1 to 2 months after the law took effect. My proposed legislation is that we vote for a statewide comprehensive smoke-free law prohibiting smoking in all indoor areas, workplaces, restaurants, bars, and clubs, just as New York and Minnesota has done. Exposure to secondhand smoke from burning tobacco products causes disease and premature death among non-smokers. There is no risk-free level of secondhand smoke, and even brief exposure can cause immediate harm. Smoke-free laws that prohibit smoking in all indoor areas of a venue fully protect non-smokers from involuntary exposure to secondhand smoke indoors. There will be little to no financial burden when it comes to this legislation. The only people affected will be the patrons and employees that will have to find a suitable area to smoke, free of the public and only doing damage to their own health if they choose to do so. I hope that I can count on your votes to pass this legislation. Your vote can help change our future and the lives of our children who need to be protected from the dangers and critical health effects that can come from being exposed to secondhand smoke.